Okay, we just want some basic information about who we have on the phone. As you can see, question 1, green or B if you are an accredited organization, and D or pink, salmon, red, however you want to call it, if this is your first time. And a lot of people have not yet responded, so I'll wait. We have about, okay, we're past 50% now. Okay, so we have a preponderance of already accredited organizations. And I would like to encourage people who haven't given their response to do that. All right, so we'll clear this. We have a good idea. Next question. Public, not-for-profit, for-profit. And if you would, additionally, in the chat box, are you a Canadian agency? Are you getting accredited as a network? Are you from the Department of Defense, or using the after-school program accreditation? All that would be useful if you would take a moment and let me know if any of those apply to you in the chat box. Good. I'm glad to see our Canadian folks here. And as you know, the process is pretty much the same. And I don't think there's anything actually here that's going to be different for Canadian orgs. All right, one more question, and then we can move on. That's also, it's interesting. If I don't usually ask, but just a sense of who you are, what kind of services you provide, it always sort of enriches the experience for us. And actually, maybe I'll start to do that a little bit more. But just give us a general sense of how large you are in the budget, from the budget perspective. Okay, we have a pretty good idea. We have mostly small and medium-small organizations, 4 that are in the 5 to 20. And let me just ask the organization that clicked on greater than 20, are you greater than 50 million? I'm going to see if you're like one of the really big agencies. And we do have organizations that are not public, the public agencies. Some of them can be $1 billion, if you're talking about a whole state Department of Child and Family Services. But we have some for-profits, some private organizations, definitely in the excess of $100 million range. So again, both of you, the 2 that said 20 million, just let me know if you're over 50. Okay. We'll close that out, collapse chat box, the feedback, because I don't think we're going to need it any longer. First thing I want to do is talk about the review team. And if any of you are COA peer reviewers, and if you want to, if you're, feel comfortable reviewing that, let me know. Just what you should do if that's the case. You can go up to the center left where it says My Status. You see a hand, and if you click on the hand, that will you'll jump to the top of the list with an indicator for me. So if you are a peer reviewer, click on the hand and let us know. Okay, so who are the peers? Also, if you're thinking about becoming a peer, it's also a great thing. We're not going to make a pitch here for becoming a peer reviewer, but what I usually say is, if you don't have a peer reviewer on your staff, then you can imagine that there are some advantages that might accrue to your organization regarding the accreditation process by having a trained peer in your staff. And there are a lot. You have like 1,000 trained peers out there. And so a very, significant number of organizations do have peer reviewers from them. So they tend to be seasoned professionals from accredited organizations, right? They understand the process. They've been through the process once, if not a few times. And They tend to be. I think the criteria, I think, is 7 years in a senior position. Do you know if that is correct, Mike?
I believe it is 5 years now.
5 years, okay.
In a senior position, and a master's degree is required, as well as at least 5 service standards. Those are sort of the key, and being from an accredited organization. Those are the key eligibility criteria.
Thanks. And I know under some circumstances those can be flexible.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, if you don't meet all those criteria and you really want to become a peer reviewer, then it's certainly worth a call for COA. They do have training, and I don't know, it used to be the case that you had to be recommended by another peer reviewer. I don't know if that's still the case.
That is no longer the case, but we do require, for team leaders, they have to be. Not for new peers, though. Okay.
There's a training process I think is fairly extensive. And so at the end of which there is, an evaluation and then approval process. They are required in this, in part of the training and part of the approval process is them making a commitment to adhering to certain policies and procedures, including a code of conduct, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and the commitment to hold confidential what they learn in the accreditation process, both about what an organization's scoring might be or just anything they find that might be proprietary business information, whatever it is. They do sign that. And I know some organizations on your end will also request that agreements are signed also, and that's perfectly fine. They do have experience in providing services, both in the management arena, and most of the peers are senior management, as well as they have to, as Mike suggested, you have to have the ability to review at least 5 service sections, meaning they have to have had some experience working in there, managing services, demonstrated knowledge of the service deliveries, this system. And the peer team always includes a team leader. And a team leader is a very important position. They oversee the site visit, they manage the team, and additionally, there'll be a very important set of interactions between the team leader and you in preparation for the site visit. And we will cover all of that coming up in the next few slides. So, you've submitted your self-study, okay? Time to take a breath. I wouldn't go on vacation right now, but it's time, I think, to reflect and congratulate yourselves for getting all that work done. Because you're not going to be able to rest for long, but take a moment and appreciate what you've accomplished. The self-study will be reviewed internally by staff. Now, it's not reviewed for content where the staff are not going to be, figuring out if you are meeting the standards. If there are some really glaring issues, you'll be told about it. And if they're bad enough, I really not exaggerate, but it's possible that the self-study review can result in a cancellation of the site visit. Mostly what we do is we look to make sure the self-study is formatted correctly, right? All the links work. You've got table of contents in there. All the documents are included. We look even at the attachments, right? We're looking at all those things that are attached to the service narrative, etc. And the strictness that we review the formatting for is because it's really important. And I know many of you have heard this, it's really important that any peer or any staff member or any commissioner can open up any self-study and know exactly where to find what they're looking for. The reviewers, the commissioners are all volunteers, and as much time as they put in, we really don't need them spending time relearning somebody else's system. So what we really do is mostly we check the formatting and make sure it's all there, everything is addressed properly. And we do spot check some key issues. If your strategic plan is virtually nothing there, or your PQI plan really does not look like it's adequate, then we do check some key documents. But anyway, so that information, it gets carried back to your coordinator, and you receive a self-study remediation memo, which basically says, your self-study was great, send it on to the peers, or you have fix a couple of these things before you send it to the peers. Not uncommon that some of the links don't work. So really, I would check the links. And here's a tip about the links, okay? Sometimes what happens is, if you take just everything and copy it over onto a thumb drive, you can check the links, but it's still reading the documents and the links off of your hard drive, okay? So if you're going to do that, if you're going to use a jump drive, and I think even with a CD, take it to another computer other than the one you burned it with and test the links there, just to make sure that something didn't happen and it's still reading the links off of the hard drive. But that happens fairly frequently, and everything worked back at the office, but once you send it here, it doesn't work. Now, your CLA coordinator will still be working with you, and in fact, they're available to you throughout the process to the end. The time will come, and it starts pretty much with the call that's initiated that occurs between the team leader and you, the person who represents your agency. At that point, you sort of get handed over for most of the work at that point to volunteer services and the team leader him or herself. After the site visit, you go through some of the staff committees and into the commission department. But even though your coordinator here isn't working directly with you, they are available if you want to talk to them, ask them questions, and get feedback, whatever. It's time to keep working. You've taken your breath, and you've got the self-study in, which means you've got a significant number of documents ready, and now you've got to make sure that the on-site documents are ready, the people are ready to be interviewed, and generally your goal here is, can we show that the standards are implemented, right? The standards are operationalized, they become part of how you do business, and staff will need to know about them, and they're using them. So that's what you're wanting to be verifying here. And you'll have 2.5 months between the due date for the self-study and the site visit itself, and that's a whole quarter. So it's a lot of time to get data, reports, minutes, of various things, right? So be planful and use that time. This is a great time to do a mock site visit. If you have peer reviewers, that can be super helpful. If you don't, we do have a webinar on how to do a mock site visit, and it provides some general thoughts about how to approach being a reviewer, putting on the peer reviewer hat, and conducting an assessment of your organization's readiness. You might also think about seeing if there's another organization in your community that's accredited and may have a peer reviewer on staff that could, be willing to come over and give you a hand and actually do that for you. A great thing to be able to do. Okay. Now, you're going to get a very important letter 4 to 6 weeks prior to the site visit. And do you want to pick it up from here, Mike? Is this
Sure.
Is where you pick it up? Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, as Joe mentioned, usually between 4 and 6 weeks before the site visit, after the self-study has been reviewed and you've received your self-study remediation memo with any adjustments that are needed or not needed, you will receive the team notification letter. This team notification letter is essentially your signal that this site visit is a go, that we're definitely moving ahead. please ensure that the contact information on this letter is correct, because the same letter goes to the organization as goes to the peer review team. So everybody's seeing the same contact info for the primary contact at your organization and for your CEO. Make sure the email address is right, and make sure that any emails from COA, this is a good idea generally speaking, any emails from COA are on your safe senders list, because we do send a lot of emails for lots of different reasons. Some of them we find that some of them end up going to spam because we use certain mass mailing programs. Anyway, this team notification letter, it's going to include the information of your peer review team. Who is your team leader? Who are the peer reviewers? And what roles they'll be playing within that. It'll have their contact information, which includes their mailing address, their email address, and their phone number. You'll need those addresses to send them their self-studies. The organization is expected to send the peer review team the self-study. Just want to make sure everyone's clear about that. The peer review team profile, the information within the letter does not include a resume for the peer review team or a profile. It will list what organization they're coming from, which hopefully will help to determine whether or not there's a conflict of interest in place. So that's also important when you review who's on your peer review team. It will include information about what a conflict of interest consists of, and it's specifically defined within that letter. Sometimes the notification letter will go out before 6 weeks. Usually 6 weeks is the average time that it goes out. If it's ready to go and the self-study was submitted early and reviewed early, you may get that letter as early as 8 weeks before the visit. If there are self-study issues or there are staffing issues on our end in terms of finding the right peer review team to go to your site visit, then you might end up getting a letter a little bit later.
Just on the issue of conflict of interest, you can object to a peer team member and assigned. I mean, if you have a legitimate reason. We typically will not assign a peer reviewer to your organization if he or she works in your state. All right. One of the things that have come up in the past, probably the distant past now because this has been in such a long time, is the perception that a peer reviewer works at a similar organization to the organization being reviewed and may in fact be trying to apply for the same grants. So, try to eliminate that as a potential conflict. Also, it's sometimes, we assign someone and it's not clear that they used to work for you or, they have a relationship, a professional relationship with your CEO or some other senior staff. Take a look, and you do have an option to do that. I mean, it's not a firm, no matter what you want this individual not on your site. You have to have a good reason to, for that to happen. But it is something we find to be, we really want to make sure that there are no conflicts here. So you have a role in that. Then comes what I think is one of the most important points in the process part of this is your call with the team leader. And Michael's going to go through this. Right.
So you've just sent out you've just received the peer notification letter, which will have your team leader's information, and the team leader will also have that letter. So they will have your contact information. Right after that, the self-studies should be getting sent to the peer review team. And the team leader will be contacting you as soon as they have received the team notification letter and maybe even before the self-studies have been sent out. They will arrange the site visit details. You'll talk about expectations for the site visit. You'll get to know each other. It's important in this particular call that you set up the site visit schedule, or at least start that process. You want to talk about what sites need to be visited. You want to talk about logistics. The team already knows how far apart the sites are. They have a whole list of sites for your organization, but you'll want to talk with the team leader about maybe what the best order of site visitation to these different programs that you might have, what the best order would be. The team leader should ideally, and they're trained to do this, they should really be helping you to feel better and to calm down about the process and to answer any questions that are of concern to you. Other things that are helpful for the team leader are any areas of concern within your organization's culture. Is your organization very strict in terms of business attire? Is it a very formal organization, especially at the head office? We encounter this a lot when we do military site visits. There's a different expectation when the team gets on site than some civilian visits. So is there a dress code? Is there a smoking policy that the team would need to know about for any reason? Perhaps they're not allowed to smoke anywhere within 100 yards of the building or something like that. Any unique practices that you think the team should know about based on the structure of your organization? Some of that information you've probably included in your self-study, but it's also good to convey that to the team leader over the phone. And then you'd also talk about technology needs. You are expected to provide a computer, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but you're expected to provide a safe place for the team to review records. And computer access is important to discuss in the intro call, as well as internet access. I think that's about it for that.
I just want to say just one other thing about the culture, and maybe this doesn't directly fall under this, but reviewers, the site visit will officially start on a Monday morning. The reviewers typically come in on Saturday night or Sunday morning and spend Sunday afternoon and possibly early evening looking at case records and looking at personnel files and looking at logs. They do most of their document review on Sunday. And if that is not going to work for you, this is where we have to know it as soon as possible. It happens very, very rarely, but there are some, some religious organizations for whom you just, can't do it Sunday. So that would be good information. They would need to know that well before they get on site.
Yes, and that takes us to hospitality, and this would be a good time for me also to mention that as soon as that team notification letter goes out and the team leader has spoken with you to make some decisions about logistics for the site visit, which would include when the record review begins, probably on Sunday, as Joe mentioned, they will be making flight arrangements or travel arrangements if they're going to just be driving, and hotel reservations. So that ball will start rolling as soon as that letter is received. In terms of providing meals, we've gone back and forth about this at COA. I know that after our last training, I asked some people about the difference between after school and COA policies in terms of hospitality, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But a welcome breakfast and a working lunch, these are acceptable for the team. The team, however, does not expect meals to be provided. They're trained not to expect that, but they do. I would say. I think Joe is aware of this too. They do expect a little assistance if they're going to put in a full day of work for perhaps how to order some lunch.
Yeah, in my experience too, I've been on some site visits as an observer, and I think most of the ones I've been on, the team had lunch with the coordinator, the person on your end who's getting us all together. So just to check in and make sure there's any issues, and just to generally talk about things.
Yeah.
But, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's great. That kind of thing does happen a lot on site visits, but COA is very strict about dinner invitations. The team is not allowed to accept dinner invitations from the organization. And the main reason for that, we've discovered, is that teams tend to like to have a working dinner where they can all get together away from the site visit and discuss the day, anything that came up, and reconnect with each other, because oftentimes they're not working together throughout the day at all times. So teams are encouraged now, as part of the process, to have these working dinners to reflect on the day's review. Those working dinners are not only they not only will not accept invitations from the organization, those dinners are also excluded from anybody else participating in them from outside of the agency or inside. No guests who it's a team, if a team member has a family member who lives in town, they're not allowed to participate in that dinner either, for obvious confidentiality reasons. As the slide says, if you're not providing meals, that is, lunches or a welcome breakfast, it's just very helpful if you could help the team out with knowing what's nearby, how to order lunch. Just help them, give them some tips of some good places they might want to consider ordering from. And also, please, no thank you gifts, no welcome gifts. It's better in terms of conflict of interest to just avoid that altogether.
We have a question, Mike. Do we have to provide a few computers for the reviewers in the same room during the entire visit, or just the first day? You're going to have at least one computer in that room the whole time that they're there. They may need to email back and forth between COA about documents and otherwise. And on the last day, they can't leave. They're not supposed to leave the program until they have sent in and submitted their ratings, and they're going to need a computer. They may all along the way be making some decisions, and so they'll need a computer to type in the ratings and other comments into the documents they need to submit to COA. I don't think you need to have a whole battery of computers. It might not be bad if there was like 3 in there and there are 3 peers, but the obligation, I think, Mike, right, is one computer for the whole time that they're there.
The obligation and what the team notification letter says is that a computer will be provided to the team leader. Yes. So one computer is expected. More computers are helpful, especially if your organization has moved to a highly or maybe entirely electronic record-keeping system. That is certainly helpful. The follow-up question: laptops are okay? Yes, laptops are okay as long as they can access your internet. And
Mark has hit the raise hand button. If that was, do you have a question, Mark, you want to ask? Or I don't know, maybe that was an accident, but if you want to ask, I see you're internet only, so you're not going to be able to ask it verbally. So if you have a question, then put it in the chat box, and we'll address it for you. Next up is a little bit more detail about transportation and lodging.
Yes, in terms of lodging, as I mentioned, the team leader is going to work with you if you're the primary contact for your organization. In that intro call, they're going to ask you, where's the best place to stay? Is there a hotel that's really close that would fit our needs in terms of in terms of safety, in terms of convenience to review the organization. It might even, if you're a multi-site organization, maybe there's a hotel that's centrally located among the sites that the team will have to go to. Providing that information would be very helpful, well, is essential to the team so that they can make their travel arrangements. And it's also helpful if that hotel could allow for a group meeting. That's not critical, but that's helpful. It's also important to alert the team to anything happening locally that could make reservations difficult. If you have a huge convention in town that's taking up a lot of hotel space, if you have a sporting event that's happening near your organization, if you're perhaps an inner city organization, or if you're near a large college, for example. Also, if there's any construction that is going on where there are roads closed nearby the organization, that information is also very helpful to provide them with so that they can plan the site visit schedule. Do you have anything else to add on that, Joe?
Well, the only thing about the location is the questionnaires, the stakeholder questionnaires that you invite all your, a large number of stakeholders to submit. One of the last things on there is an invitation for the person filling out and completing the survey. Do they want a private meeting with the peer team while they're on site? So that is something that that may have, that may be a request. So part of the arrangements, and I'm fairly certain that the team leader will bring this up, but having a place not in your program area, on any of your program properties where they can meet, and typically that would be, I'm assuming, at the hotel. But that's something that has to be addressed, because they do. I don't know how frequently it occurs, but it's definitely something that you need to make sure you arrange.
Right. Go ahead, Joe. I was just going to say that Jessica has a question there.
Okay.
Her question is about whether the organization is required to provide transportation, such as a rental car, or if this is included in the site visit fee. This is included in the site visit fee for one rental car per team. That is included. However, the team is allowed to accept rides from the organization if they make the site visit move more quickly and smoothly. Joe, I think you have an anecdote about ways that can actually help the experience of the site visit for the organization.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit. I wonder why this has never actually been made part of an expectation. But I was on a site visit one time, and what was happening was the senior management were transporting the peer team and specific peers from site to site. And it was really an efficient way for interviews to occur. And it's a senior manager who may be subject or be part, will be interviewed in a number of standards throughout. It's a really efficient use of time, and allows for a personal connection between the organization, your organization, and the reviewers. So that might be something that could be very helpful. And it certainly cuts down any misdirection, getting lost, et cetera, et cetera. And if your CEO is driving around, you can be certain they'll arrive at a very nice parking spot really close to the entrance program. But anyway, that's just a thought. I mean, it might be helpful for everybody if at least part of the transportation is done that way. And I know also the clinical director came in and took the peer who was looking at the mental health programs. Again, so that person in charge of that was able to put the programs in context. I mean, it's not just about evidence; it's about the issues surrounding the program and it's the way it operates and your philosophy of treatment, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just something to consider. It can be useful and helpful to the process. Do you have any questions about logistics? Any further questions? Now, part of what you'll need to be doing in preparation is making sure the evidence is all together, right, and organized. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I think I mentioned earlier that we're considering a webinar on evidence, because you can see there's a lot of different types of evidence, and there's different approaches, and there's different things to know, I think, about each of these. But you're going to want to have, to make sure, right, that the documents are prepared. All the documents, you know where they are, you're going to be able to get them. Some of them you'll put into in binders right into the rooms where the reviewers are going to work. Some of them, may not be. But you need to be prepared to get everything as needed. And some of the stuff, if you're going to interview the facility manager, maybe the fire drill logs and some maintenance reports are in that person's office. You need to be aware of where everything is and how it's going to work when the team is there. Things like meeting minutes, data reports, it's probably good to have all of that in the room with where you're going to put the peer team. And you're not technically required to have a copy of the self-study, but it might be useful. The reviewers are likely to have brought their disk or their jump drive with them to do, last minute, close to the visit, getting a sense of what's going on. But it's probably good to have another copy around. And generally, a lot of the documents that you will have submitted or have on site, if they're related to policies and procedures, they might be one or two documents that we're asking for, but that are part of a larger, say, procedure manual for mental health programs. It's not a bad idea. You should make the whole available, make that whole document, put the whole, the binder with the full set of procedures in there. It could be useful. Oftentimes, the reviewers on the on-site do ask for additional documents. So anyway, just a few thoughts. But this is the universe, pretty much, of evidence. And in preparation, you ought to think about how each of these things will work, what shape they are in, etc. And again, also ask in that meeting, if the team leader doesn't bring it up in the call, what does he or she want available on Sunday? What are they actually planning to look at specifically? They might say, some peers might certainly want to see the board meeting minutes, others might not. So if you don't have that discussion, err on the side of inclusiveness, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring that up if the team leader doesn't. Okay, I'm going to do a quick run-through of the site visit and some issues related to that, and then we're almost done. It looks like we have a question. Are electronic documents or hard copies preferred? If you keep something in hard copy, then provide it in hard copy. What we're not asking you to do is scan something and turn it into an electronic document if it's not typically kept that way. And we're certainly not asking you to create hard copies of things that are typically electronic, like case records. If you have a case record system, electronic case record system, we are not asking you to print out things, documents from there. Whatever its native form is, unless it's easier for you for some reason. But certainly with case records, they're going to want to see the system and how it all functions and works. But other documents, so if you should, again, only things that are typically would typically be used in hard copy. I'm sure you have a financial management program that's designed to spit out reports. So yeah, reports like that that would be typically printed and distributed. Those would be hard copy. And questions you have about that, definitely you'll have the opportunity to talk to the team leader. Because once you have the initial meeting, there'll be some more back and forth, and at that point you can simply contact him or her with questions. It doesn't all have to be formalized at that point. And yeah, electronic copy, because you're submitting it as an electronic copy in the first place. So, but again, you're submitting, say, in your electronic self-study, right? You're going to submit a scanned version of your assessment procedures and, say, your service delivery procedures, there's an assumption that those, I mean, I don't know how you keep them and make them available to your staff. Are they online? Like our HR manual is online, so it's COA, and so if I want to look at anything, I can go open the Word document in the appropriate folder. If because they're going to want to know how staff access these things. In many organizations, they'll have hard copies in a binder available to staff if they need to go check out a procedure. So again, whatever form that the document is utilized and made accessible to the staff and need to use it, that'll be the format. And, and if the team leader makes another request, then you want to accommodate it. One thing they should never do, though, as I said, it's not acceptable for them to request hard copies of case records that are maintained electronically, like all the time. So, especially if they're in a system, right? You have those, electronic case record whole systems, online systems, etc. Does that answer your question? Okay, a brief run through, just as a review for you, or maybe this is new for some of you. We talked about Sunday record review. Okay, you're not going to need to be staffed up for this, but someone, as you can see with the slide, someone who understands the records, and I would certainly suspect, if I was you, if I was the coordinator on your end, I'd probably be there on Sunday to facilitate the process. But, so they're basically going to look at records, ask questions, and there should be somebody there to get more records or answer questions about the records. Things officially get rolling Monday morning. There's an entrance meeting where the team talks about COA, introduces themselves, their background, their qualifications, gives a general rundown of what the next several days are going to be like, or a few days. You can invite who you want. Typically, it's senior staff, and it depends on the size. I mean, if you're not that large an organization, maybe everybody's coming. But I usually, the couple I've been on, I've seen 15 to 30 people, depending. More clinical managers, program managers were there. Senior staff, board chair, maybe another board member. But you invite who you want. Then they go on, they do the site visit. They're looking around, right? They've already mostly reviewed records. So they're touring, looking for the poster of the rights and responsibilities, interviewing staff, observing the staff interacting with clients. They'll go out and look at if you have vehicles, are they inspected? Do they have seat belts? They'll look at the windows. And certain facilities, do they have bars as appropriate, depending if that's necessary. They're going to look around and they're going to talk to people. And not all meetings will be formal. They're pretty much, wherever they go, if they see a staff person, if they want to stop them and ask some questions, they'll do it. Some of it will be formal, but there's also that informal aspect. And so at the end of each day, the team will meet with you, your organization's coordinator, and go over how things are going. They'll tell you how things are, and you can answer questions or bring some issues up with them. And again, my experience is that the organization's coordinator is pretty much around the whole time that the team is on site, being helpful, being facilitative, and just making sure it goes smoothly. The morning of the last day, which is usually Wednesday, it's usually 2 to 3 days is the site visit. So I think for the most part it's Wednesday morning. But the morning, they do an exit meeting, and often it's the same group who came to the entrance meeting, depending on availability. Before that, however, there is the team leader will meet with the CEO and give him or her a sort of private summary of generally what's been found before they bring that out and talk to the full group about it. The team will not tell you a lot of specifics. They will give you a general sense of where things are. They can't tell you whether you're accredited or not because they're not the people who decide that. They are fact finders for the commission. Their job is to objectively review the evidence and submit a report. You can put some of that in context in your response to the report. You can talk about mitigating factors, plans to get certain things done, talk about the challenges you're having recruiting staff or board members, and the commission can take that into consideration in the final decision-making process, but the peers can't. So just know that they've got to be objective and rate the standard as they see it. When the meeting's over, they are required to submit the ratings to COA electronically before they leave the site, before they go to a hotel, whatever. They got to do it, and then the site visit is over. An issue that's important is, and Mike touched upon some of this, and he'll go over this a little more. And I think at this point we've covered most of these topics. Is they need to have a private workspace in your site, on your main program site, probably headquarters, where they're going to do their work. Did you want to say anything more about that, Mike? About the room and the what needs to be there?
Yes. No, I think that it's pretty self-explanatory. They need a place to work. One computer is required, as mentioned, for the team leader, and it's really about privacy and confidentiality. And it can also serve as a place for them to perhaps leave things out if they are not able to completely finish a task before the day's work is done. If they need to go back and revisit something, it's good to know that they don't have to worry about the room and start from scratch with finding a particular record that they were reviewing when they finished business the day before.
Now, the question about case record, the team's review of case record comes up frequently. And this will be something you will be discussing with the team leader. How do they sample? Well, there's a number of there's different ways which are acceptable, and the team leader, him or herself, decides what his or her approach will be, and it depends on his or her preferences. One way is that you are giving the freedom to select records randomly, and the reviewer is likely at that point to give you some guidelines for that, or may even go into the room with you. The team themselves might decide that what they're going to do is go into the record room and open file drawers and pluck out records. And that doesn't always work if you have records scattered at a number of sites, but that may happen. It may happen in those sites too. I mean, you need to do a basic review on Sunday of a set, and then if they go into a program site, it's very possible that they'll want to see the record room there, and if you keep records there in any quantity, and take a look at them. Also, it's possible that there's a way in which they can be coded, and a truly random sample occurs based on drawing numbers randomly assigned. I don't know exactly how that works, but if that's the choice of the team leader, you'll have ample heads up about that to work with him or her and prepare how that's actually going to occur in practice. Again, the team leader gets to choose, and you will have that conversation in advance. Now, here's a little overview of what happens after the site visit. There's a couple ways which is not fully accurate, but site visit's over. The team leader submits the ratings back to COA. Typically 3 weeks, but sometimes as long as 4, you'll get a report back. In between that time, the information will have gone to what we call the PCR committee. PCR stands for pre-commission review, which is the clunky, non-descriptive name for the site visit report. Okay. What they will do is they will vet the site visit report, PCR. They will make a determination that your organization needs to respond to some standards or not. In some cases, you're going to have ratings of 3 or 4 that you're not going to have to respond to based on their assessment, and you won't be asked to. You're going to get that report back, and it's going to include only standards that will definitely hold you up from getting accredited if you don't raise the rating from a 3 or 4 up to at least a 2. It'll also include very specific recommendations about what you should provide to demonstrate that you have raised the standard rating, that you've done something in between, right? You get 6 to 9 weeks to make those adjustments. So the report you get will not include any standards you get rated 1 or 2 on, and in some cases some of the 3s and 4s. You get the whole report at the end when you finally are accredited. So what we really, and the reason we've whittled that down is because we've had in the past organizations who were not happy with their 2s and submitted evidence that they should get a 1. Or spent a lot of time, responding to standards that in the end we're not going to hold them up in the first place. We really want the organizations to really focus on what's important here, to really, make sure they concentrate on the important areas. You should definitely respond to everything, all of the recommendations for documents requested should be addressed. Now, you can also disagree with the review team. The reasons to respond are not just because, here it is, we have now we've now implemented the standard at a better level, and here's the evidence. You could disagree. You could say that review team misinterpreted the standard. We believe we met it, and here's why. They missed evidence, or they didn't ask about something, and afterward, we realized it, and here it is. So, it's not just, you can disagree with the review team, and you clearly don't want to be prepared to make your case. So you get 6 to 9 weeks to respond, comes back into COA. There is usually a 4 to 6 week turnaround time to get it before the commission. Commission meets 8 times a year, so there could be a lag time before the next commission comes in. A minimum, the commissioners need your report a month before their commission meeting. They have a lot to do. They have to read them. They have to consider the evidence, make recommendations for if something is missing, raising ratings, and they have full-time jobs, etc. They're all volunteers. And then once the decision is made, you'll either be notified you are accredited, or if the commission determines you're still not ready, you can get a deferral of 3 to 6 months, depending, 3 or 6 months. Rare occasions, there could be a 9-month deferral, but an organization that gets deferred to that long might be close to the denial, but that rarely happens. Now, the way this process can take 4 to 5 months from site visit to decision. The best way to make that occur faster is to respond quicker. Okay, as soon as you get that report, start responding. You don't have to wait till 6 weeks are up to send it in. And again, that's the fastest way. And you have that time between site visit and when you receive that report. You should have some idea where there might be problems. I mean, if you submitted no data reports or no quarterly case record review, data, you don't have to wait for the report to come back to say you got to submit 2 quarters. So again, you should know. I mean, it's an open book test. You know what the standards are. You know what the evidence is asking. You know how things are rated. So it shouldn't be a big surprise. And get working. It'll be a lot. It'll make the decision-making process, turnaround time, a lot faster. And I covered all of this. Okay, we talked about the time frames and recommendations, etc.